The building industry is calling on the police to stop intimidation by so-called construction mafias. The Bargaining Council for the Civil Engineering Industry says some key infrastructure projects are being derailed by a construction mafia which intimidates and extorts funds from contractors. For more on this, we're joined by Aubrey Tshalata, President of the National African Federation for the Building Industry. Mr. Tshalata, thank you very much for availing yourself this morning. What do we need to understand about the so-called construction mafia and its workings?
No, thank you very much, and thank you for having us. I think there are three levels to it that we need to understand. One is that the construction industry itself has not been transforming over the past 20 years. So there is a lack of transformation in the construction sector. What I mean is there is an inability of the sector to allow participation of black new entrants into the sector. This has been a major challenge of the sector. This has now resulted in discomfort and unhappiness at the level of communities, as well as at the level of smaller contractors, in particular black contractors in townships, in villages, in small towns and in large cities. The second one is that there has been a failure by government to hold the various government departments and state-owned enterprises to account and to be responsible for transformation. In other words, you have projects that are implemented across the board where a number of what I call regular suspects appear all the time. In other words, projects get given to one and the same group of companies over and over again. And this is creating resentment in communities. Thirdly, there is a phenomenon of officials and politicians getting involved in the business of the construction and built environment space. And this is corruption to the core. And the rise of these corrupt activities has been witnessed by contractors who are losing on opportunities because projects are given to politically connected individuals or to people who are connected to specific politicians. And this has created a major problem. Now, this has created a groundswell of frustration and wherein various members of the community and various small contractors have said, we are not being heard, we are not being listened to, and they have taken matters into their own hands by going into sites and demanding participation or asking that they be allowed to participate. Many a times, major contractors refuse to engage with them, and this kind of confrontation that happens. But we must hasten to delink that from criminal activities. Because while those legitimate concerns of transformation, while those legitimate concerns of dealing with corruption, legitimate concerns of state enterprises not being able to give opportunities to black business, there is also an element of criminality that has crept in. So our view as the Federation, NAFBI, is that we need to isolate the criminal element and deal with it decisively, but also not lose sight of the fact that there are legitimate issues of lack of transformation, rising corruption by government officials and politicians, as well as the sector, private sector itself, not wanting to transform. These are legitimate issues that need to be dealt with and we need to deal with as a country. But that must be isolated from criminal elements, and criminal elements have got to be dealt with accordingly.
How does this criminality manifest itself?
Say that to me again.
How does the criminality manifest itself?
Well, the criminality manifests itself in operations like extortion, where people will come into a particular site and indicate that because the project is taking place in our locality, and because government, and they misread government policy in this regard, says that you need to give us 30% of the project. Please, can we have, as an example, if the project is 10 million, can we have 3 million thereof in our own hands? Or where if contractors are undertaking projects in particular localities, people will come and say, if you want protection from people who may want to participate in this project, please pay me a protection fee. So in other words, contractors are now subjected to paying protection fees. Or just blatantly a scenario where someone sees that there is a project and demands that we want to participate, but we're not going to do any work. Just give us the money and we will walk away. And these are sheer criminal elements. And they threaten people, obviously, by saying if you do not agree to our demand, this project will not continue. They hold various project managers ransom on sites. They threaten with firearms and all sorts of weapons to say the project will not continue. And they shut down the project because they understand that in the construction industry, loss of time equals loss of revenue in any project. And because contractors get under pressure and not wanting to lose revenue, they succumb to this kind of pressure. But as I say, that's sheer extortion and that's sheer criminality that is displayed on our construction sites.
Could it be that these acts of criminality are tied to what you were telling us about in terms of a lack of transformation, corruption, and the maintaining this lack of transformation by the relevant authorities?
Look, there are organizations in our sector, established industry bodies, which are engaged, like ourselves, the NAFBI, the National African Federation for the Building Industry, who are engaging with government and who are engaging with private sector. But I must say that we've been at it now for over 20 years, and there is resistance in transformation. But this kind of resistance in transformation is also aided by politicians who go into bed with large construction companies and do business with them. And these large construction companies tend to feel that they have protection from politicians and that they can continue to get projects and they will not be touched. Or there are officials who are in the pockets of large companies, and because large companies can afford to pay them, they are able to continue the status quo and giving those individuals or those companies projects one after the other. There are companies with an order book of over R1 billion or multi-billions of rands, but there are small contractors who don't even have a project of 1 million or 2 million rands. And when politicians or officials are able to work with companies in that particular fashion, the small operators are aware of these facts because many of them that I've interacted with would say to me, we've got files on these people. We know exactly who is in the pockets of who. We know why company X and company Y are getting projects, and we are not getting projects. And they say if we stop this particular company at the level of a project, we know that this company will run to its principals or to the people who are behind it, and those people will show up. But so that those people can show up, we want to deal with the company where it's doing the project. So in other words, if we touch company A, we know company A will run back to its own principals who are behind curtains and tell them that so and so are stopping us there, we can't continue with the project. So that we can see who's behind this company, why is this company getting projects over and over again. So I'm saying there is a degree of frustration on the ground. And when I say the sector must transform, I mean we need to look at the way in which we package projects. As an example, if Sanral is doing a road of 100 or 200 kilometers, you need to be able to package that project into smaller chunks so that smaller contractors are able to do portions of that 200-kilometer road. But that is not the case at the moment. The entire 200-kilometer road gets given to one company, and that company decides what it gives the small contractors, and many times they give them those parts of the project that don't have value. And when you
Mr. Tshalata, please allow me to just join you there. Unfortunately, because of time, I really do want to ask you this, right? So you have spoken about a lack of transformation, this degree of frustration that you also speak to that is on the ground. How do you perceive that it will manifest itself? These allegations, if are true, and I say if are true because we haven't tested them ourselves, it's quite an explosive revelation that you are telling us about, that the very people who are talking about transformation in this country are the very people who are sabotaging it?
Yes, what I'm saying to you is that the various groupings that are engaged in activities of stopping projects, when you inquire from them Why don't we sit on the table? And I've sat on the table with many of these groupings, specifically in KwaZulu-Natal, and we've had engagements with large companies. And I've asked specific questions. Why can't we be engaging with established companies for transformation? The reality is that when we engage with those companies, they are not forthcoming, they are not willing to share the kind of projects that they are involved in. And this results in frustration.
Thank you very much, sir. Aubrey Tshalata, President of the National African Federation for the Building Industry. Hopefully we can speak to the relevant authorities for a right to reply.